Good morning, everybody. It's just shy of 9 o'clock. This is the first KYTC Highway Design webinar of the new 2015. Today, Patrick Stone is going to go over some tips and tricks in InRoads. We anticipate to last about an hour. So, just some housekeeping things. We've got upcoming schedule on the 4th of February. By popular demand, we're going to have some drainage webinar. We anticipate it covering ditch analysis as well as pipe analysis in HY8. And then on the 18th, from your all's survey responses last webinar, we're going to be doing some InRoads site visibility tool topic. If you want to review past webinars, I believe we are up to date. We're current on having those posted. They can be found on the Highway Design webpage under the software and support. So it's over on the right-hand side toward the bottom of the resources list. But you can get to any of those there. And then if you have any microstation InRoads or project-wise questions, you could email KYTC CAD support at ky.gov, and that will go to all of our support personnel here to get you a response as quick as possible. At the end of this webinar, we will be having a survey. The same as always, it'll pop up in your internet browser once you exit the webinar, and we just want to know how you thought it went, and also we use that to schedule our next webinar. We offer up a handful of topics. The most popular one is one we'll do, I guess, after the site visibility tools. I guess now we've got a poll question. It's the same one we've had from the beginning. Just asking if you attended the previous Highway Design webinar, see how much new blood we're getting in here. If you could take a minute to go on ahead and answer that one. And it looks like we've about topped off on the voting, so we'll go ahead and close that. And it looks like about every 4 out of 5 of you have already attended the last one. So with that, if you have any questions, just feel free to type them in the chat window, and we'll get to them at the end of Patrick's webinar and try to answer all those so they're recorded for review later. So with that, Patrick, are you ready? Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
You ready? All right, I'm going to hand this over to Patrick Stone. He's one of the lead InRoads support guys up here, so he should be able to tell you all the little hints and tips and tricks that you need to know. So here's Patrick.
Well, thanks, Jason. Like I said, I'm Patrick Stone. I work in the InRoads support group. I promise not to bore you for a complete hour, probably more like 40 minutes. I've only got a few slides, and we'll be in the software working. So let's get in there and do it. Okay, the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the Roadway Designer. What I want to show you here is, I didn't know if you knew that you could dimension in here. They're temporary graphics. It's just place temporary dimension line, and any point you pick in here, you get your temporary graphics. You got to be careful when you're clicking on these points too, because you can grab a subgrade line too, and you'll get those slopes. but it persists through all the cross sections once you pick those, as long as you have those points in your templates. So you can pick down through here, and let's get to some place where, see, and this is a parking lot, so that's why it looks the way it does. So if you're confused on the width and everything on it, but that's how would you go through and dimension. Any point in this template you can put a dimension on. Even if you've already got these, you can still place another temporary dimension. If you want to know what that fill slope is, as long as you have a point there, it'll give you the slope, it'll give you the horizontal offset. Now to get rid of these, only thing you have to do is close the Roadway Designer, open it back up, those dimensions are gone. I like to use it to check your super transitions and your pavement tapers before I cut my cross sections. Another thing while we're in here I wanted to point out was in the roadway modeler, the preference is set up to empty the design surface by default. And I didn't know if you turn this off, it opens up some more options for you under the features. The append, replace, rename, and modify. The modify and replace, if you have these toggled on and run it, it'll automatically update your plan view with the features that have changed. And then I want to go back to the slide. I want to talk just a little bit about some examples of the valid key-in slopes. And I put this slide in there so you can refer back to it. So I'm not going to read every one of them to you. But these are examples of different inputs that you can put in and get the same result. I didn't know if you knew that you could do the 1/4 inch to a foot and get the 2.08 or any combination of that. And then I want to talk to you about the additional key-ins. I'm sure everybody has used the station offset, station elevation. But I'm going to go through and show you, we're not going to hit we will go through it. I will go through every one of them, but we're going to do just a few in plan, a few in profile, a few in cross sections, and hopefully I'll show you something that you haven't used before. So with that, let's hop in the plan view. Do that. Okay, I know that you can do the tracking. Whenever you track, it's whatever your active alignment is. But you can also, let's say you're working on an approach. I'm actually working on this ditch down here, which is a separate alignment. And this file actually, all my modeling I do with alignments. I don't like to manipulate the features much in the DTM because I usually mess something up and have to rerun it and I've lost my changes. So I like to have them as alignments. Short version. But when you come in here, you can draw lines off this center line. Let's say that we want to place one at, let's see what the station range is here. I believe we're 1400, 50 foot right. So SO equals 1400, 50 foot right. Okay, we've placed one there. We can track to it. Now it doesn't matter if you can use the plus sign or leave it out. I usually don't put it in there because I like to use some text imports, and the pluses usually cause them problems. But what you may not have known is you can also, even when you're on this active alignment here, you can place plus and offsets off of a different alignment, and that's part of the key-in. So let's say I want to place a 50 foot at station 50 foot, 20 foot right of this ditch that runs down, right down through here. So what you do is you do a station offset, and let's do 50 foot, 20 foot right. And then what I'm doing here is you have to comment out, like, I don't want elevation. I don't care about the elevation on it. So if you want elevation, you would put it in that saved place there. And then all you have to do is type in the alignment name. And this one is called NPL for parking lot ditch. And you probably want to place a line first. You usually have to be an active line to do that. And that places it off this alignment. Now our active alignment is still main line, but you can go through. It's handy when you're dealing with right-of-way. You're in the intersection. You want the right-of-way past the radius return to be on the approach. You can go in and type it in. You don't have to worry about going in, figuring out what alignment it is if you're helping somebody with it. You can also, the distance and directions, I usually use this one when I'm keying in the existing property, you know, kind of in Etch-a-Sketch mode, trying to solve some of that PVA mapping. But it would be a DI equals. And the DI equals, you know, is distance and direction. So let's just say, for instance, we're going to go 200 feet. We want to make it north 45 degrees, 50 minutes, 30 seconds east. And let's see, we'll just check this with the place plan note, right-of-way bearings, 45, 50, 30. And you can also do northing and easting. You just type in any equals and then your coordinates. And you can put elevations on those too, you know, just by adding it to the end of that on the northing and easting. And that's what the brackets would indicate on that list I showed you previously, that you can add different commands to it. Let's hop in a profile here, and we'll talk about the distance grade. Several of these commands you can use, like distance grade. You can use it in profiles. You can use it in cross sections. And I'll show you just, you know, a couple examples. What I usually like to do to make sure I'm in the correct one is do a little tracking, vertical, make sure I'm getting it. Because sometimes when I'm going through doing these runs, I'll have 2 or 3 profiles in there, and I'll be typing stuff in on this one, and it's popping up over there, and I'm wondering what's going on. So just make sure you've got your active alignment and you're in your active profile set. And on these, I mean, if you know the key ends, this is no big, I'm not going to be super thrilled with this, but you can do a station elevation. And I'm just doing a station elevation 526. You can see that's 526. You can come off the end of this, and like the distance grade, there's a bunch of different key ends you can use for distance grade. Like you can do the percent. If we want to do 20 feet and we want to go on a 5% down, you can do a negative 5%. Or you could do the same thing and use the decimal degree. Just depends on how you like to work. Some people think of it differently, and you can put that in there. It'll all be the same. Now, one thing that I don't use the delta offset much, but you may find a use for it, and all it's doing is it's going from the last point. Like if we want to do a delta offset from here, it's going to be like if we want to go, these are 20-foot grids, I believe. Yeah, if we want to go 20 foot over and 1 foot down, should hit right about there. It's going to distance grade. Well, let's see what I'm doing here. I'm sorry. That's not distance grade. It's delta offset. Like I said, I don't use that much. So anyway, that will be your delta deal there. Let's hop in the cross section here. Bear with me while I switch these files around. And all we're going to do on this is we're just going to talk about how, like the distance grade, you probably use that for setting slopes for an entrance or the offset elevation. Maybe you're putting a pipe, you want to dimension and, you know, show a pipe on your cross sections if you don't have it as a feature. And then the delta offsets, basically, you know, it works the same as in the profile. It just works from the, you know, you're not in, it's coming from this baseline here for the delta offset. One thing that I did want to point out is when you're in here, the distance grade, when you cut these cross sections, and I'm sure most of you know this, but there's a text note in here. If you get somebody in there moving it around and cleaning up your cross sections for you, and this gets deleted, that's when you lose your intelligence in your cross sections. So just make sure if anybody's in there manipulating any of this, they don't delete those text notes, because that's where your information's stored, and it'll mess you up. So let's go in here and do a distance grade. Let's actually snap to the corner. So if we were going to go distance grade 20, -2%, and the same key-ins would apply, the decimal, the percent, the slope, the fractions. You can enter all that in there. Offset elevation, you know, this is one I would use if I'm doing my pipes or whatever. What I like to do is I use the place line command, and I pick inside this data, because if you pick out here, place this line, and you do an offset elevation, most of the time it's going to give you an error saying unknown command, because you're not inside that data field. See, if you look down here, unknown key enter command. Now, if you do that same command with just, you know, knows you're inside this data field, it'll work. So that's just a little something. You need to be aware of where the intelligence is on these cross sections and profiles, or you won't get what you want. Now, the delta offset, you know, that's just delta from wherever you're at. If I wanted to go up 5 and over 5, if we clicked right here, we did a delta offset 5,5. It's going to put it right there. I may find that useful. I don't know if you're drawing in something, but I don't usually use the delta offset, but you might. Now we're going to hop back in the plan sheet right quick. Well, maybe not quick. And what I want to talk about in here is tracking, the different trackings that are available in InRoads. Most of the time, the tracking I use is just the tools tracking. And that tracks the alignment that you have active, as you know, and then, you know, if you want to track this ditch, you'd switch to that one. But did you know that when you're doing the tracking, well, let me find tools tracking, the horizontal alignments and vertical alignments, see, it's plural, so you can track more than one. So I'm tracking, it automatically goes to this one, which is my main line. But let's say I want to track, I want to track down here and find the edge of pavement. So if you want to switch between alignments, you got to be right on it. You left click, and it'll give you the difference. So if I want to come over here, left click on that, I'm tracking between this one. And if I want to know the change a different alignment, then you would hit Control, click it, you're on this one. To get the distance between them, click them both. See how now it's tracking and you're getting the distance between both of those alignments. Now, this would be useful, I would think, in like a gore area where you got a ramp peeling off from main line. You want to, you know, see the difference between the center lines and, you know, whatever you have as an alignment there, so you can put your ditches in or what have you. But to get back to the original alignment, if you just reset, it'll go to the alignments you had, and the whole time you were on main line. So I think it's a good way to track when you're not familiar. You're helping somebody make some decisions on a project, and they've got, like I do here, you know, a little parking lot with, you know, 30 alignments. It makes it a lot easier for you to find the alignments, track, do what you need to do. Now, on the snap lock, there are 3 types of snap lock, as we know. The point snap allows you to snap only the points. The element snap allows only the elements. And I usually set mine, I don't have it to, I usually leave it to no snap. It usually causes me more problems than it helps me. But what I want to show you here is on the Roadway Designer, you've got several ways. Like let's maximize that. Let's go through here and let's say we're doing a in condition override. And I want the start station to be something other than 1020, which is this. I want to start it at this part. So if you come up here, it's hard to snap on stuff in there to get it at where I want it. That's not what I want to do. So did you know that when you're modifying those end conditions, you can come in, and if you'll hold the control key down, then it'll let you go to your plan sheet. Then you could snap exactly where you wanted, accept it, and you've got right what you wanted. Instead of going through here and trying to pick or calculate it, you can just pick it right off the plan sheet. That's pretty useful for when you're doing radius returns and entrance radiuses on jobs. I mean, that way you don't, if you've got, I don't start every one of these with 10 plus not and off. This might start at 1, and then this radius up here may start at station 2, 3, 4, whatever your system is. That way you can just go in here and click them and get the information that you want. And then, you've always got the F1 help. If you go to any InRoads palette, and this works in MicroStation too, if you already have the help. If you already have the help up, you can hit F1 on any palette, and it'll take you directly to that. So you don't have to go through and search through the help contents. It takes you right to the help on that particular command. Let's close. Now we're going to talk about viewing some triangles, different ways to view triangles, and the benefits of each. I've got a decent sized DTM that we're going to use here, an example. It's not monstrous, but it's bigger than a bigger bridge replacement. And what I want to show you is, if you go to Surface and you're viewing your triangles, we have these preferences. This is an existing surface. I'm going to show the proposed just because I don't want it to be yellow. Okay, and I just want you to notice how long it takes to view these triangles. It's churning, and I will show you in a few minutes that there's another option on there called the meshes. Now, what the meshes does is makes it one element. You've got all your triangles as one element. Now, the way this is drawn, as long as I don't have my graphic group on, these are all individual triangles. And when you come through and you use the delete triangles and you drag it across, you can see these all highlight and disappear. Now, when you make this a mesh, it will not highlight those, and I'll show you that in a few minutes. But it'll still delete them. But it's one element. But it's a lot faster. I've been using the meshes a lot here lately just because it speeds up your processing time quite a bit. But before we make a mesh, I didn't know if you knew that you can come in here and delete triangles by filter. This is pretty nice because you can come in and set the maximum leg length is usually the one I use. Now what that does is you specify the longest allowable triangle leg length, and anything over that length is going to be deleted. Now the minimum angle, that specifies the minimum interior angle. The maximum angle is the maximum interior angle, and this elevation range, it can be kind of confusing in my opinion, because what it does is the high all triangles with one or more point whose elevation is less than or equal to this setting are deleted. Now on the low, it's, all triangles with one or more points whose elevation is greater than or equal to the setting are deleted. The only way I've ever tried to use this is I turn them both on. Now if they're both on, if both the high and the low are toggled on, then what it does, all the triangles between the high and the low are deleted. And that's the only one that makes sense to me. I don't like the minimum or the high and the low unless I use them together and set them, and I just want to delete the stuff between them. But you may find a great use for that. This is pretty nice down here. You can generate an exterior boundary, and you can set this feature style to, let's see, exterior boundary. I think it's a, let me find it here. How are the P's going to be naked? There we go. You can set it to triangulate, and what I would do is, I know that these are, get in here and measure one of these. I know those are 70s. Let's see. I'm going to set that to 70, not 770. Apply that. And then it's looking through there, and it's selected all the triangles that didn't meet that criteria. And with all that, it's going to retriangulate and deleted out all those triangles. I think that one's pretty handy. Now what I want to show you is when I delete, these are all still just individual triangles. But I'm going to delete these triangles and view them as a mesh. If we've used triangles, we're using the same preference. We just turn the mesh toggle on. I mean, it's all one element now. The graphic group's off. Now, if you want to go in here and use the delete triangles, it'll still work. But it doesn't automatically delete them. You'll have to review it to see that change. They're out of the surface. Let's get into templates and talk a little bit about the templates. What I want to show here is just, I don't know, I don't know how many versions back it was, but they've changed. Used to, if you wanted to test a point control, you had to go in here and delete the constraints off. But now you can test the point controls, like test a horizontal or vertical point control. And what I would do is when I make a template, if I'm going to come in and put a turn lane or something in out here for widening, I want to see how that's going to react when I, assign another alignment for that to follow. And that one looks like it would work fine. And you can test that on any of the points to see how they're going to react with each other. Make sure you have your points linked up properly. And we're going to hop in another file. What we've got here is, this came from the approved culverts list off the drainage website. And I just wanted to show you how you can import these graphics as a template. What I've got here, let me pull up this one to show you. This is just off drainage website. These are the approved culverts. I just imported this shape. And what I want to do is import it into the as a template. With this template up, what you're going to have to do is it has to be either a complex shape or a complex chain. And it will import these curves, but what it does is it uses the chord height tolerance. So what you'll do is you select the elements that you want to import. Get this on the screen so you can see it. You're going to go import the template. It's going to ask you what's your default style. For what I'm showing you, I don't care. I mean, you might pick bridge or whatever. This is important here. You can do template and end conditions, template, or just end condition. This one's just going to be a template because, you know, it's just a pipe arch I'm going to run over my creek to show for that volume. Apply that, follow your prompts. So we would need to, there's the origin point. The chord height value, yeah, that's great. I don't worry about that. The chord height is just what it's set on the triangle, and then it's going to chord down through here, and you'll have a bunch of little segments. Okay, and see how it's put all these little chords? That's due to the chord height tolerance and where we've got it set to calculate that. Now you will get, you know, something like this. That shouldn't be there. Why put that in there? I don't know. I know this is 10 inches wide, so I'd come in and just add that point in there. And you can change this. I brought in this V-ditch. Of course, you wouldn't want to do that, but you can put concrete. You can change it. Point is, going through and calculating and putting all these points in is a pain. You can graphically pull it in. You can do it for guardrail. Anything that you can draw, you can pull in as long as it meets, you know, passes the criteria. One other thing that I wanted to show you too was that for like templates or typical sections, let's say, if we want to view a typical section on here, the first thing you're going to do is set your scale, global scale factor right, because the global scale factor affects the annotation and the displaying of the annotation. So for this example, I'm just going to set the text to 5. There's no cells in here, but I'm going to set it to 1, align styles 1. And what you do is you go over here and you pick which one you want to display for a typical. And let's just do this example. And you just hit the display. There are preferences set up. I think we've went over this in a webinar, but you just load that. And what you do here is you go in and you pick, like if I want to show the fill on this side and the cut on the other, and you can come down through here, you can turn on and off whatever you want. I've got the dimension text, liters, all that on, so that's jammed it right over top. But this will be a good basis to start your typical section. You've got all your components in here. You've got your stuff to start dimension, and there is some cleanup, but you don't have to have somebody go in and draw every single one of these. Now, I want to show you too that those key ends that we were talking about earlier, you can go in and you can use any of the key ends, the slope key ends that you want to. Like, for instance, this is set to 20%. If we wanted that ditch to be a 2-to-1 slope, if you hit a 1, 2, then you hit a tab, it changes it to the percent, and that's what this one uses. And it'll change that. You can use the percent. You can use the fraction, decimal, and it will just change. You know, you put it back to 33% if you want. Anything you put in, it's going to change to percent there for the slope value, and it'll change it. But it's just nice to be able to put in whatever input you're used to using. Now let's hop into some cross sections, and I want to talk briefly about the use features only. You know, we get calls on this from time to time on people trying to use the features only. And what it does on the surface is if you use features only, it draws lines in the cross sections only where the features land on the section limits. You know, this is helpful. Usually use this on proposed surfaces, and I think that's pretty standard practice. And it eliminates the placing of a vertex everywhere the section crosses a triangle. Now, normally you don't use this on existing surface, and the reason for that is I don't know if the surface was shot in with random points or break lines. It's usually a combination of both. But what we'll do is go in here and I'll update these cross sections to show you what it'll look like if you use the update only on the features. So you like come here to properties and advanced, and this one is set to use features only because that's I know how that one's created. Now this one we surveyed in. I mean, I've got an idea of how they created that one too, but it's not going to be what I want. But let's turn on the use features only in this one. So what we'll do is evaluation cross section. Let's update some cross section. We'll see something missing is what I hope. So we'll go down here to update cross sections, and we're going to refresh a surface. Let's make sure we're in the right cross section set. And let's see. See how we've got this missing data? These were all shown as random points, and where it's missing down here, these were shot in with features when we shot that in. But this is pretty common. Just be careful when you're using the use features only. I don't recommend using on existing. A lot of the existing we're getting are LiDAR points, and you're gonna see some missing stuff in your DTM if you use that. So, but you can just turn that off and go back and turn it on. We can do that real quick. What's that real quick? Pick one of them. Pick the right cross section set. Okay, and you can turn them back on. Okay, and another thing I wanted to point out, let's hop in a plan sheet here, is the surface command. Did you know that the edit feature command has a more button? And what it'll do is it'll allow you to move a feature point ahead or back using length, direction, or slope. Now, I generally use horizontal and vertical alignment, so I don't work this way, but if you need to move one of them, you can do it. Well, I just want to point it out. If you go to edit feature point, there's a more. We can switch to one of these, pick a feature. If you hit more, so you have to go ahead, you can step down through there, and you can modify the length, the direction, and the slope for what it's worth. If you need to add something or modify between the existing feature, you can use this command to do that. One other thing I want to point out too is if the last surface you load will be the active surface, and this is handy. I use it when I'm annotating profiles, and I set my RWK up for the existing surface to be the last, and that way, when I go to annotate my profiles, it's the active surface. And I don't know if you've seen people put the profile on there, and they'll have their proposed surfaces active, and it'll show the same elevation for the existing and the proposed. But we can close this and open it, and it'll make it active. But you can do the same thing, just reordering it in your RWK. So it'll make it active. So if your RWK was created and you put the existing in last, it would be the active surface. Now we're going to talk about some microstation key-ins for InRoads commands. And I'm going to read this one. The uses would include setting up shortcuts. And what I mean by that is you can go through with a key-in command, type in these commands through InRoads, and you could put them in like a function key. You could put them in the header of a text import, just a text file, so you could import it in. Well, I'll just show you. What you do is you get your key in up, and you'll type in InRoads. When you get the InRoads up, you get all the different, this just populates all the different commands that you can use. And like, let's look for InRoads geometry here. And you can type it in or search for it. Geometry. And I don't want that one. And let's do something with the Kogo points. Like if you wanted to edit the Kogo points, this is the command. You could take this, copy this, and go up and put it in your function keys. I'm not going to do that right now. But if you hit enter, it'll pull up the command. And that's a good way to find any of the InRoads commands you need to use for, your text imports or something like that. You might use it for deeds. You could tell it that you want what style you want. You can look up all those commands and put it in your text. Now I'm going to talk to you just a minute about the text import wizard. I don't know if you've used this. It's pretty handy. It used to be an application add-in. So if you don't see it here, I don't think it is anymore. I think it's just come standard. But I want to show you what you get, what we usually get. Now, the example I'm going to use is, I'll pull up. Like this is a typical, I know on this project there's only 5 core holes. On your project there'll probably be a lot more, which would be more reason to use this. We get these from Geotech. They want this staked out. We have to fill out their Excel sheet. I'm sure most of you've used where you go in and give them the, I think it's lat lon to decimal degree, but this way you could get these points in your ALG and a quick way to report them back out for survey to stake and to send back to Geotech after the fact. So what I did is I just copied this and I pasted it into a text file. Now this was just out of an email that they sent, and I changed the name of these to CH for core hole, and I'll take the pluses out. Now if you had a whole list of these, I'd go in Excel, and automate this. I don't really care about these, the depth or the, whether it's a cut or fill, so I'll just comment those out. So anyway, what we'll do, let's set their global scale factor back to 30. If not, it's going to be microscopic here. So on, we'll do it. Text import wizard. Now there's several different things you can do with the text import wizard. And I'm not going to read every one of them to you. Surface, well, we're going to use the Kogo point one. The help is very good on all this import stuff. And you can save these wizards. I don't have any saved on this computer, but if there's something you do all the time, you can save the format and use it, type a description in there. And let's just search for that file. What I've got is the core hole. I've got a property line one, but I think we're going to be running short on time, so we're just going to do this one. Okay. Now what it's telling, it's just asking how do we want to order this. If you had a bunch of stuff, like if you took the whole email, you could tell it to start on whatever line this is, and this is where you change it and run to the end of the file or whatever line that your element, your information's at. So if you go through here, we're going to use all lines in here. These are tab spaces. And if you don't, the easiest way to do it is go through here and look. You can turn on space if you're not sure how it is. And you can see that's not what you want. You want these in all these in columns. So I'll use that. You hit the next, and then it's going to ask us, what do you want? See, it's got a skip on this. I know that I want this to be my point name. I know that I want this to be my station. This is going to be my offset. And I did have to go in here. You'll have to put the negatives on your lefts and the positives on your rights. And usually on a big file, we'll do that in Excel and tell it anywhere you find that, put a minus, and then merge them together. I'm going to skip the right, skip this, and then I added a, this is a style here. The benchmark style. I know it's a core hole, but I'm going to use a benchmark because that's what I'm going to do. Finish that. I didn't change in that XIN. I don't care. Okay. Now what it did was it went in and added these points in. We can look in the geometry under COGO points. And there would be CH 1 through 5 for the core holes. And what we're going to do here is we'll get a report on these. Well, let's view them. View geometry, horizontal notation. What we're going to do is, you can use all the wildcards here too. And there's good help on it. So look at the help on it. I won't type in every one of them, but what we'll do is, like, we know these are core holes, so we'll type in CH asterisk. And a tab will get them all up there. You've got all the core holes, and we're going to annotate them. And what it did was it jammed them in here. I'll send that out to the survey crew, and they'll go stake these out. And with that, Jason, I think we're ready to take questions, or that wraps it up. I don't want to go OR.
Okay, we did have one question about the displaying the typical sections. Could you
Sure.
run that real quick again, please?
Sure can. And you can get to it many ways. I just, uh-oh. I don't like it that. I said I could. Oh, boy. Yes, give me just a second, and I will pull it right back up. I'll take a second. Or you want to talk about something else while I pull that up?
Well, just I want to let y'all know this webinar is being recorded as well, so you can go back and review this if you feel the need to later. If you say, hey, I remember Patrick showed me this at that webinar, but I don't remember exactly what it was. You can go back and review that. Hopefully we'll get it posted here in the next couple weeks. Also, don't forget about the survey that'll pop up once the webinar ends. That's how we determine which topics we do. We ask you which ones you'd like, and we actually ask you all for suggestions. If you have any suggestions as far as webinar topic, you can, there's a question on there to fill that out as well. So and that's what we use to plan this stuff, and it's very helpful to have that. And if you just have a question, and I mean, you don't have to feel like you have to submit a webinar idea. If you just have a quick question, just go on ahead and email us at email talk to Patrick, and, or email the KYTC CAD support at ky.gov, and we'll get that back to you as quick as we can, trying to answer that question. But other than that, I think Patrick's going to show you how to do this time.
Okay, and I'm just going to show you once you have your template drawn, you can go in here, and if you want to display this for a typical section sheet, you would do you'd right-click on it, right-click over here, and it says Display. When you pick in the display, you're going to get this display template. And what we have is a preference set up for typical sections. All this preference is doing, I mean, you can change it, make it your own. We just have it dimension text, dimension line, leaders, and we've turned off like the point names. It's a big mess when you have the point names turned on, the component descriptions. I mean, if that's something you need, you're welcome to turn those on, do whatever you need. But what you'll have to do is it shows the backbone, you know, edge of metal, if you will, and you can come in and pick what you want to display. Now, it'll display, you know, I usually put like one cut, one fill on each side. And let's get up here and we'll display it. And we'll just display this on our typical section. And what I failed to do here was to change the text. The text should be set to probably 1. And these other ones probably 5. But anyway, what you do is you, for whatever scale you're doing, you change it, make it look right. All this text, a lot of times, we'll redo it. Anyway, see if that answers the question, Jason. If not, they can call me and we can talk them through it.
I think they said they got it. So.
Okay. Well, if they have any trouble, just call me. We'll help you with it.
Does anybody else have any questions? We'll hang on for a little bit. Doesn't look like we're having any come in, but there may be somebody typing. So.
Okay.
The tracking between alignments.
Mm-hmm.
Could you go over that again? I guess they may be referring to how you get the distance between alignment A and alignment B if they're running not really parallel, but alongside one another.
Like for the gore area, I think we were talking about. I mean, this was, I think, just a plain. I didn't have a gore area. It's got a ditch, but anyway, same difference. Okay, what we're talking about there, and the tracking on that, what I want to point out was it's not just the regular tracking. You have to use the horizontal. See, it's got, you know, alignments, meaning you're going to be able to track more than one. We've got the main line. We're tracking down through there. And now if you want to switch to one, you can just, if you want to switch to one, you're going to have to use the control and then pick your alignment. See, now I've switched to this alignment. And it's still on main line. And if you wanted to track between them, you just hover over your alignment and left click. And now you're getting the distance between those two, and it's readout right there. So if you want to activate alignment, you use the control and the data button. If you want to track between them, you just hover over it and data point to it. And then if you want to get back to the alignment, you just reset out one click. Is that clear as mud?
All right, thanks, Patrick. One thing that I know I've gotten a question on before was you've got your text displaying there, and how to. Sometimes the text is just enormous and just in the way, and what that text is pulling from is actually the text height in MicroStation when you're using the horizontal vertical alignment tracking as opposed to the just generic tracking. It's pulling the text height from MicroStation. So if you don't want to see it, just make that text height really small and it'll go away.
Yeah, I just change the text height, and you can make it smaller. Or you could make it a fraction, you know, just like Jason says, microscopic. If it's annoying you.
Other than that, I think that was the last question. Again, we appreciate y'all tuning in with us and putting up with us. Again, please fill out the survey, and The next webinar will be on February 4th. Until then, y'all have a good day and be safe. Thanks.